10-4 drivers, welcome to the Channel 19 Experience Trucker Podcast. This is where the real stories roll, straight from the blacktop. From first jobs to last hauls, the laughs that kept us going and the lessons that left a mark. It's by truckers for truckers. This is the Channel 19 Experience. Let's hit the road.
Paper breaker 19, can I get a radio check? Pretty quiet out here on Channel 19. Well, there's a plain white rapper taking pictures at the state line. Hit the jake brake quick, we ain't paying no fines. The driver swing into the interstate, body shop south at exit 5. Building trucking ain't the same as it was. We're the last of our kind.
Welcome all you road warriors and gear grinders. I'm your host Tony and welcome to the show. We hit the double-digit mark for episodes this week. It's episode number 10. And it's also Easter weekend, so happy Easter to everyone celebrating that. Also, I'm recording this on Saturday, April 19th, which happens to be my birthday. So happy birthday to me. Let's get this rig rolling. This week's partner is Truckin' for Kids. Truckin' for Kids is a truck show over in Bakersfield, California. It's going on May 3rd and 4th, and it's presented by 10-4 Magazine and the North American Transportation Association. Net proceeds are donated to Shriners Children's Hospital. This year, it's the 44th time they've held this event. They've got truck drags on Sunday. They've got a show and shine, a live auction and raffle, burnout contest, jet dragsters. They'll be lighting up those trucks in the lot on Saturday, and they've got a kids zone. So if you're in the area, make sure to go check that out in Bakersfield, California, Saturday, May 3rd and Sunday, May 4th. You can find more information at truckinforkids.org. This week on the podcast, we'll have a short and sweet update on trucking economic conditions, an update on the Chris Barber Freedom Convoy case. Arkansas seems to be the center of the trucking legislation whirlwind, so we'll check in down there. And besides being my birthday, we'll talk about why else April 19th is significant. Also, we've got in the pre-trip a little update on the encouragement cards. In the money line, we'll keep it nice and concise this week, being a holiday week. Just one topic in the money line, and also I'll share a quick outlaw trucking story. Channel 19 Experience goes international for the next couple of episodes, and I'll talk about why and what I'll be up to over there. This week, we sit down with Raheem Grant, box truck driver with his own authority down out of Savannah, Georgia, a resilient entrepreneur who's transformed his darkest days into a beacon of hope and inspiration. Raheem opens up about his personal battles, the challenges he's faced, and don't forget to stick around for the post-trip for updates on various events going on throughout the country and what's up next on the podcast. We're trying to make it to 1,000 Facebook followers this week. We'll do a drawing, give away some swag, some nice hats, some t-shirts. So let's see if we can make it to 1,000 Facebook followers this week. Like, share, and get your friends to join in. Also, at the end of the podcast, I've got a special Easter message for those of us celebrating Easter this weekend. So let's take a quick break, do that pre-trip. If you're not driving, it's a great time to like, follow, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends. If you haven't joined already, head on over to our Facebook group, Channel 19 Experience Trucker Podcast group. It's a private group. You got to answer a couple questions. What's your favorite kind of truck? Things like that, and agree to the rules to be nice, be kind, typical stuff on the Facebook side. So a couple boxes to fill out, check a box says you're going to follow the rules and you're in. And a little more interactive place to be posting stuff and everybody can get involved. So come and join the fun over there. Trans Carolina Permits is based out of North Carolina. They've been in business since 1977, and they've got a team with a ton of experience in all of our favorite part of trucking, which of course is the government. They provide a portfolio of services for the trucking industry, various applications and permits, FMCSA authority, 2290s, IRP tags, DMV tags, trailer plates, along with state filings for your business. Not to mention they have a compliance program. They'll help you with clearinghouse setup and queries, IFTA, and mileage reporting. So your state by state mileage, your fuel purchase tracking, and get that wrapped up into a nice little bundle for quarterly filings. They're a one-stop shop for your trucking needs. You can find them on Facebook and LinkedIn, or check out their website, transcarolinapermits.com, or give them a call at 1-800-899-4870. Grab that safety vest and let's jump into the pre-trip. Quick update on trucking economic conditions. And I'll make it quick because this is quickly becoming a broken record we're not really enjoying. The trucking market continues its gloomy streak. A little bit of silver lining. Fuel prices went down a little bit, which we kind of expect given the direction crude prices are headed. But that's kind of the one happy news item of the week. Mac laid off a bunch of workers at two of their different plants out on the East Coast. We've got a couple more trucking closures this week, a couple longtime carriers closing their doors, cashing in their chips while there's still some left and look like they were filing bankruptcy. Very organized closures from what it looks like, working on getting their trucks and drivers back home. They're keeping mechanics and other office personnel on board through the closure. I've reached out. I'd like to ask them some questions about their perspective at some point. I know they've got a lot to work to do in the coming weeks, but I think it'd be interesting to hear their perspectives on some of the decisions that they felt like they needed to make. Overall, sentiments continues to sour. And let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say the missing elephant in the room. I've been reading a lot of numbers on ocean liner volume. Container ship volume from China is trending towards record lows. I'm talking about 2008, the Great Recession level lows. Ports on the West Coast are seeing 40% fewer ships than last year coming in from China. We're trending in a direction that's going to have less inbound ships headed to the West Coast from China than we did at the lowest points during COVID. And what does all that mean for us? Well, fewer containers means fewer loads, plain and simple. West Coast drayage, port to rail business is drying up. LTL, full truckloads, going to get lighter too. It's just worrisome all the way around because it's a chain reaction that happens all the way out from the port. So other things will pick up, and it's not like people are going to stop eating. People are going to slow down their buying here as things get more expensive in the short run. It's always curious in situations like this what China tends to do with their currency, with the centralized currency and the way their government's structured. They have a lot of freedom to pull the levers of their currency value in reaction to stuff that we do or the world does. And so I was comparing the Chinese yuan against the euro, comparing the US dollar against the euro, comparing the yuan against the dollar, just to see if anything looked interesting. And honestly, it didn't. Both currencies are about 10% down against the euro, the dollar, and the Chinese yuan. So they're not doing anything more aggressive than what we're inflicting on ourselves here with these tariffs. But it's always something to keep an eye on to see if China uses that lever to make sure that their manufacturing stays competitive. I'm sure they're probably looking at it like, why bother? So they might as well just ride it out, which looks like basically where we're at, which is a bit of a stalemate, a staring contest between China and the United States to see who blinks first, and we'll see what happens. Let's head north for a minute. Update on the Chris Barber Freedom Convoy case. Chris posted this week on his Facebook, and I shared it out as well, that he received the Crown's sentencing recommendation for his two convictions. The Crown is looking to put Chris and Tamara in prison for 2 years. They also want to seize Chris's Kenworth, his W900, the iconic Big Red. It was interesting that they decided to put that recommendation out before the Canadian election. They've got an election here, nationwide election going on the 28th of April. Of course, this sentence recommendation drew a terse reaction from the trucking community, the conservative side, a lot of folks in the Western provinces where folks like Chris are from. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the election plays out, both for Chris's sake and also for what's next in the relationship between the United States and Canada. Chris and his attorneys have asked for a stay of that sentence, basically summarizing the argument that they posted on social media, which was Chris was following the advice and instructions of the various authorities that he was communicating with, like he talked about with us during the Freedom Convoy, and he shouldn't be punished for doing what they told him to do. So we'll see what happens there. For all of us, though, regardless of which side you're on, we need to be vocal about selective and disproportionate punishment for any reason, but in particular for political reasons. Chris is one of us as a trucker, but also one of us as someone who believes in free speech, the right to protest, and wanting to bring a grievance before elected officials, a grievance that he shared with many others. And if we lose that right and ability or have to fear prosecution, particularly selective prosecution and punishment for protesting peacefully, the next steps are not as nice. And I'll talk a little bit more on that in a minute. In the meantime, I'll post a couple of links if you want to support Chris and his legal defense. One is to Chris's merchandise shop. I've got my t-shirt and sticker that I ordered on the way to me, and his website's bigredmerch.ca. He ships to the US as well. If you're smarter than me, that is. You got to change the country code on the order form to the United States. I really hate it when I'm not the center of the universe. So yeah, Chris is a Canadian, and when you go on his bigredmerch.ca, it defaults to Canada. And so in order to be able to enter a state instead of a province, you've got to change the country to the United States. So luckily, Chris got me straightened out, and I've got my order on the way. Can't wait to get it here. Hopefully, I get it here before I go to the UK, and I can wear it over there, over to the truck show. Be interesting to see if any reactions get elicited by wearing that shirt over at the truck show. So hopefully, it gets here soon. Or go to a website I'll share as well, jccf.kindful.com. That's the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom that's representing Chris. You can also donate there if you want to help out. If you're just getting up to speed on this topic, no worries. Check out episode 7 of the podcast and our interview with Chris Barber, or just go to our website or YouTube channel and you can find just the interview there. Also, there's a Canadian documentary called Unaccountable. That's another great hour-and-a-half summary of what the convoy was about, interviews with people in the convoy, and also sharing a bunch of the coverage for events that went on during that period and after. This matters for all of us, so check it out. Shifting gears, we'll talk a little legislation for a minute. Arkansas has been at the center of the trucking legislation news recently as we watch what goes on with a couple of bills before their legislature. Two seemingly similar bills, but before them have to do with CDL requirements, being able to speak English language fluently, or at least fluently enough to satisfy what has been the English speaking requirements for CDLs all along. One bill, 1745, essentially wanted to make it a fine if you were found in violation. This bill was supported by the ATA, OOIDA, and others. It has passed. I just saw that it had recently been signed by the governor down there in Arkansas. American Truckers United, a group that supported a different bill, they called Bill 1745 toothless. I can't say I disagree. After 1745 was passed by the House, the head of the state troopers there in Arkansas already said that it would be optional to enforce it, and it's a fine, it's not out of service. The American Truckers United bill calls for larger fines out of service. There was also some interesting commentary around American Truckers United's bill where it was called into question. I know some Canadian sources had been saying that their bill would have ended up restricting or invalidating Canadian CDLs based on the way it was worded and the various types of visas and CDLs associated with visas. I'm no immigration lawyer, so I don't know about all that, but I have reached out to American Truckers United to see if they'll get on the podcast and talk about it some more. I did talk to them for a while when I was at Matt's over in Kentucky, and they seemed quite interested to come on the show at some point and talk about their organization and what they're working on. They're on a lot of places, so there's ways to hear what they have to say either by going to their website or especially their social media. But I'd like to talk to them and ask them some specific questions if I get the chance. We've got tens of thousands of rules on the books now to combat various problems we see in trucking. It's a matter of, is our government actually going to enforce any of these rules and do something about it? Enforcement of laws changes things. Time will tell. Let's talk about something more exciting. My birthday, April 19th in the 70s. It's a day that's inseparable from me. April 19th has had an interesting history. You know, when I was a teenager, April 19th and April 20th, there was a stretch there of a number of years where really bad things happened on April 19th. The Oklahoma City bombing, the Waco, Texas, the Branch Davidians, the raid, the fire, the deaths, Columbine going back a few years before that. Every year it was like, what now? But April 19th is also the anniversary of one of the most pivotal events in human history. Now, I knew this as a kid because at one point in the house I grew up in, the upstairs bathroom got remodeled. And back in the day, when you remodeled stuff, you put in wallpaper. You don't see a lot of wallpaper going up these days, but back then you did. And mom did it herself. She had some help from her friends and my grandma. But the bathroom got re-wallpapered, and the wallpaper that was used had kind of this design where it had replicas of newspaper clippings from historical events. Civil War, World War One, World War Two, Revolutionary War, and it just had the headline and maybe depending on how they were overlaid on the wallpaper, you could see a little bit of the story, none of the story, part of the headline. It was just part of their whole design. And anyway, one of them caught my eye because I spent enough time with nothing to do. I didn't have a smartphone back then to distract me while I was in the bathroom. And so you'd read the wallpaper or the back of a shampoo bottle. I knew a lot more about ingredients of various products in the house before we had phones. And so anyway, one of them caught my eye on the wallpaper because it took place on April 19th. And the headline was for that one, Shot Heard Round the World. Now, I grew up a baseball fan. It was the only sport that my grandparents had any interest in. It was my grandfather's passion, and so it became mine. And so as a baseball fan and one who grew up on stories from my grandfather, of course, I knew what Shot Heard Round the World was. It was Bobby Thompson's home run to win the pennant and beat the Dodgers, the famous radio and television quote, the Giants win the pennant, the Giants win the pennant. They beat the Brooklyn Dodgers. They went on to the World Series. But the problem was is the baseball shot heard round the world would have happened in the fall, not in April. So I didn't know what they were talking about. One day I make it over to the public library. I went over there and researched the original shot heard round the world. April 19th, 1775, 250 years ago today, shots were fired at Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts. The British were going around seizing weapons from the rebels. I'll call them rebels because they weren't Americans yet. There was no United States of America. And the British troops were marching through Lexington and on to Concord because they had heard of some weapon caches. Then they wanted to go seize them. There was already tension in the air. We weren't behaving. And the British, especially the troops, had their eye up for trying to squash the rebellion that was growing by the day. The Minutemen went out to meet the British troops and to stop their advance. The British troops allegedly fired first. The Minutemen returned fire. A few on both sides were killed. Now temperatures were rising. The British troops tried to retreat. The Minutemen party grew and pursued them all the way back through Lexington, on the way back to Boston, killing a number of them on what became known as Battle Road. British reinforcements were sent. More Minutemen joined the chase, and it didn't end until the British troops made it back to safety under some covering fire of some of the ships in the harbor. And this event, this battle from Concord through Lexington back to Boston on Battle Road, historically has marked the start of the Revolutionary War. There really wasn't a way of turning back from this point. Regardless of the insurmountable odds to come for the Minutemen and the other rebels, the inspiration from this day, they've shoved their chips onto the table that day and started a chain of events that changed the history of the world forever on this day, 250 years ago, April 19th, 1775. Last update here on the pre-trip encouragement cards. We released the encouragement cards last week. We've gotten a couple orders. Don't be bashful. If you're bashful, just order some of the sweet ones. It's a good way to get some extra steps in, to meet some new friends. And if you've got ideas for new ones, let me know. I'll put a link out on Facebook too. You can find the order form on our website. Right on the main page there, right underneath the podcast platforms, there's a little order form, green button. Hit that, fill out your address. We'll ship you some cards. Also, we'll do a poll question this week. See which ones are your favorite cards so far, favorite designs, even if you haven't ordered them. and also encourage you to put in any new ideas there on that poll as well. That's the pre-trip for this week. Get your seat adjusted. Let's push in the buttons and get this rig rolling. We've got work to do. At the Mid-America Truck Show, I had the fortune to meet up with Mike Barber, founder of Truckers Wealth. Both of us have a passion for understanding the uniqueness of truckers and sharing our knowledge wherever we can. Mike is a seasoned financial professional. He has over 20 years of dedicated experience serving the trucking industry. Truckers Wealth has created a specialized financial hub where truckers can receive expert advice and tailored solutions to build wealth, minimize taxes, and secure lifetime income for themselves and their families. Truckers Wealth provides personal strategies to help you achieve financial freedom on your terms. Check out his website, truckers-wealth.com, and look forward to seeing him on the program here soon.
It's by truckers for truckers. This is the Channel 19 Experience. Let's hit the road.
Welcome back. Let's drop down to line 3 and knock out the money line this week. Yes, that's right. The next couple of episodes I'll be publishing from across the pond. I'll be mostly in Birmingham, England, or I guess I should say Birmingham, England. A couple hours by train northwest of London, flying in and out of London. I've never been to Birmingham before. I've been in and out of London, Heathrow, Stansted a few times on my way to different places, but never really spent any time in England. I've been in the UK. I lived in Ireland for a while back in the mid 2000s, and I was living in the Republic of Ireland, but I did spend a little bit of time up in Northern Ireland, so technically in the UK, but this will be my first trip to England to actually look around. I'm going to do some trucking stuff while I'm over there. There's something called the Commercial Vehicle Show going on in Birmingham. I'll put a link to it on Facebook. They claim to be the most significant transportation industry show that I've been able to find in the UK, so I'm pumped up to see what that's all about, how it stacks up to all the US shows that I've been to. It starts April 29th, goes through May 1st. I've got a couple connections that I'm planning to meet up with over there, and I'm working on some more. So if you know any truckers or people who will be at the show or in the area, I'd love to meet up with them. I know we get some European listeners and some UK listeners in particular. So I'd love to say hello to you if you're around, even if you're not at the show, but you're close to Birmingham. Let me know and I can figure out a way to come say hello. But that's not the real reason I booked the flight to England. Just happened to be a pleasant coincidence of sorts. The real reason that I'm leaving the country is because the USA has an out of whack healthcare system. I'm going to England to get a medical procedure done on my right shoulder. Now, likely you've heard of people going to other countries for medical procedures. Pretty common nowadays. Go to Mexico, go to India. I've looked at some of those countries and I settled on England. I have a condition called adhesive capsulitis of the shoulder, more commonly called frozen shoulder. And so about a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit more, it started in my left shoulder. And so I've already been through this one time here in the USA, and that's why I'm not doing it here again. I could tell something was wrong. I didn't know. I thought maybe it was an old baseball injury finally catching up to me. I was a left-handed pitcher, so I've had issues with my shoulder before. But I went to the doctor here in town, and they diagnosed it as frozen shoulder within less than 5 minutes. Based on the range of motion and where the pain was and occurring in the various motions, they said, you've got frozen shoulder. And they sent me to get physical therapy to see if it could be worked out. Now, I didn't know any better at the time, first frozen shoulder. So I went to the physical therapy sessions. They signed me up for like 8 to 10 weeks, 3 times a week of them. After insurance, that costs about $80 a session. So about $1,000 a month out of pocket. I made it through about 8 sessions before I couldn't take the pain anymore. And so I called the doctor and said, look, I can't do this anymore. And maybe we should check to see if something's wrong before we continue wrenching on this thing. What I later learned, if you look up frozen shoulder treatment in other countries and some of the recommendations, a lot of places don't recommend. In fact, they would adamantly recommend do not get physical therapy. It creates a ton of pain, doesn't really help, and may create other injuries. Basically, what's going on in your shoulder is that the capsule that surrounds your shoulder is shrinking, hardening, and it's trying to lock down your shoulder. They don't know why, what triggers it. Sometimes it could be a recent injury, but other times it just starts on its own and they don't really know why. Now, it can last anywhere from 6, 12 months up to 3 years. And then it goes away on its own. For whatever reason, your body decides to loosen back up, dissolve some of the adhesions inside that it had used to lock down the inside of your shoulder, and it just goes away. So you can wait it out if you want for 3 years, but it hurts all the time. And especially when you're trying to sleep, like you can't put weight on it. You get less and less range of motion out of it. And sleeping is god awful because even if you're not putting pressure on it, the weight of your arm puts pressure on your shoulder and you just can never get comfortable. I went to the doctor and said, "Look, we got to do something different. I can't sleep. The pain's even worse. We've been at this for, at that point, probably 3, 4 months between the doctor's visits and the physical therapy and me having to take time off between physical therapy. What are we going to do now?" And the doctor's like, "Well, you really need to complete 24 sessions of physical therapy in order for the insurance company to pay for additional testing, like an MRI. But they said, let us see what we can do." And they go ahead and schedule an MRI for me. Now, remember, this was diagnosed within the first 5 minutes of my first appointment, way back when. Now, I don't remember what the MRI cost me out of pocket, somewhere between 500 and $1,000. The invoice probably said 3 to 4,000. But I got it done, and they send it to a shoulder specialist to review. He tells me there's nothing structurally wrong, that I have frozen shoulder, go figure. And then I have a couple choices, right? Basically, one's a very intensive surgery to basically shred the capsule of my shoulder to free it up, which is not good for long-term outlook of my shoulder, or wait it out. And I tell the doc, listen, this can't be my only option, doc. Give me something else to try. And he says, well, you could go to the sports clinic across town. They have a procedure that might help. Great. Send me the information. Let's give it a shot. So I make an appointment, go over there. They look it over and say, yeah, we got a treatment. They kind of make it sound like it's a little bit secret or experimental. And it's called ultrasound guided hydrodilation. Basically, they stick a needle inside the capsule that's shrunk and inject as much solution, saline, a little bit of steroids, a little bit of painkiller, blow that thing up like a balloon, stretch it out as far as they can without popping it. And sometimes it pops, but it's not the end of the world. But they're trying not to pop it. It heals faster if they don't pop it. So they give me some papers on it, tell me read it over, see what I think, and then schedule it. Then you read about it. It has like a 90% chance of a high degree of success, almost 100% of a good amount of success. And the risks of it are basically because they're putting a needle in you, the risk of infection, which I'm diabetic. I play that game multiple times a day. And also bruising. Bruising's the next biggest thing to worry about. I think I can handle bruising at this point. So anyway, I get the procedure scheduled. I go get it done. Takes about 30 minutes. I drive myself there. I drive myself home. And instantly I can feel that my shoulder is way looser. The pain is dropped to next to nothing. Now I got a little bit of painkiller around the area because of what they shot in there, and also the topical painkillers that they use where they injected the needle. And so you start physical therapy. Like literally, I come out of the clinic, I drive straight to the physical therapist, and they start wrenching on my arm because I had been not using my arm properly for maybe 6 months at this point by the time you get all this stuff scheduled. Now, an interesting part of this story is that the procedure was scheduled, and then I get a job offer to the current company I work for now. And they wanted me to start working there. And I'm like, well, I got a medical procedure, and then I'm gonna have physical therapy, and this is kind of gonna get messy. Let's talk about your health insurance benefits so I can figure out what day makes the most sense to plan leaving my current employer, giving them notice, and then also moving over to you. And when does your health insurance pick up? Kind of how big of exposure does this put me at from paying out of pocket for some period of time where I don't have coverage? I also talked to my previous employer and asked about, well, maybe I should pay for a month of Cobra while I still have Cobra as an option. So just talking through all the various options. Health insurance is an endless pain in the butt. Now, I've been spending about $80 for my portion of each physical therapy session at the place that I go to. But I've seen the invoices, and the invoices have been for around $460 or so for each session. So I'm like, well, that's a good deal, right? I'm only paying $80. I should be happy. While I'm asking all these questions of the insurance company, the next time I go to my physical therapist, I ask them, hey, if I'm without insurance for a little while, what are you going to charge me if I just pay you cash out of my own pocket because I may not have insurance to cover it? They tell me the cash price, which is $85. And I'm like, what? $85? I'm paying 80 with insurance. And they're like, yep, that's correct. Well, now I don't need to worry about paying for Cobra or something else because the cost is essentially the same as what I've been paying. So I'll just pay for my physical therapy. I'll run the risk that I don't have any, I don't have a heart attack in these 40 days or so between jobs. But what kind of crooked system are we running here where it's $80 with insurance out of my pocket, it's $85 without it? What the heck is going on? So I ask him, so do you get paid $460 if I go through insurance? Like, I don't want to screw you out of money as the provider here. And they're like, no, we don't get anywhere near $460. I asked how much they get, and they wouldn't tell me. But what I did gather between the lines was they didn't really care whether I used insurance or not. It was about the same to them anyway. So, what the heck is going on? What is the point of having invoices with this massive amount if nobody's going to get paid that amount? Or how much money is actually changing hands in this scheme and who's getting it? And what exactly is the point of having insurance then? Anyway, I digress. I go through my physical therapy, or most of it anyway. Basically, finish up the physical therapy on my own because basically I know all the exercises by heart at this point. And so now my left shoulder is as good as you can expect from a upper 40 something year old. So fast forward, and my right shoulder starts doing the same thing. I call my doctor. I say it's happening again. Can we just skip all of this nonsense and cut straight to the part where I spend 30 minutes in a doctor's office and they inject the solution into my shoulder and I can move on with my life? And since I'm not screwing around waiting for 6 to 8 months worth of nonsense appointments, I probably don't need very much physical therapy either, since my arm still works pretty good. It's just a matter of how much pain I can take right now. And their answer was no, you can't do that. They said, well, you can try to schedule an appointment directly with the sports clinic. So I try that, and they won't do it without a referral and an MRI that we know isn't going to tell us anything that we need to know. And so they kind of box you in, even if I pay out of pocket. Now, I imagine there is a price that would free this up. But even if they were to do it without some bonus payment to unlock the magic referral box, we're still looking at 5 to 6 grand out of pocket, and that's going through insurance. And I asked, can I just pay you without the insurance and bypass the insurance procedures? And they're like, no, not really. So I ended up looking around the world, the Caribbean, Turkey, and I ended up searching in England. And because I've lived in other countries before, I've been to doctors and hospitals in other countries before, in countries that English is not their language. And it's not really a lot of fun to be dealing with doctors when you're both not speaking the same language natively. So I started looking at what was in England. And so, sure enough, it's a very common procedure to get. You Google shoulder hydrodilation or frozen shoulder hydrodilation, and there's all kinds of clinics that are going to pop up in London. And so it was just a matter of picking one that had good reviews. And I called them up and they made me an appointment. It's an in-office procedure It's scheduled for 10:30 in the morning. They asked me to come at 10:15. They'll do the procedure at 10:30 and I'll probably be out of there by 11:30. And here's the kicker. It's 500 pounds, which is about $665 US. All in, the appointment, the procedure, the saline solution, the steroids, the painkillers, the ultrasound, the whole thing. That's less than the cost of the plane ticket to get there. And so I booked it and I'm going there next week to get it done. So I bought my ticket with some points that I had on American Airlines. I bought my hotel room on points. The commercial vehicle show is free, free entry, and I can do the physical therapy myself when I get back a few days later. So hopefully I'll be swinging a golf club in a couple weeks without pain and I can sleep at night and all for less than $1,000. It's wild. It's something seriously wrong with our healthcare system here. I'm not a communist. I'm not a socialist sympathizer, but the free market doesn't seem to be working too well for us either when it comes to medical care. And I have more stories about this wacky system of ours. I talked early on in the podcast about my kidney stone. I can tell you about that, how that went. I've got one son who's blown out two Achilles. We've had our fair share of dealings as a family with the medical system, and there's hardly a lick of it that makes any sense whatsoever. Now, like I've said, I've been at the doctor, I've been at hospitals in other countries. There's good and bad to say about those experiences too. But this giant money grab that we have going on at the expense of people's health in this country, from the doctors to the specialists to the hospitals to the drug and pharmacy companies, this thing needs to be overhauled. And all I can tell you, the only thing I've learned through this is be willing to seek options, explore all your options. Don't let these folks get away with pushing you into what the insurance company wants you to do. Their interests are not the same as yours. Ask about cash prices everywhere you go. Look at various coupon programs like GoodRx. I don't care if you're at the doctor, the clinic, the pharmacy, price shop, because there's significant differences between what you could pay and what you might be able to get a discount for. In fact, I've got some stories about how there are prescriptions that it is significantly cheaper to get for your pet. That's the same medicine that you might be prescribed. And you can go down to the pharmacy, sign up for their little discount card, and save about 75% off the cost of prescriptions if they think it's for a pet. So push, push, push for what's best for you and your family. They take advantage of us because we're good people and we take what they say at face value. And it's the insurance companies that are pulling the strings. So off to England I go. I'm going to catch a soccer match while I'm there. I'm going to go check out some Peaky Blinders sites, hopefully, while I'm in Birmingham. I'm going to explore the city, consort with some lorry drivers, find some interesting food, make a couple of podcast episodes. Hopefully, I'll do some British sounding things like meet a couple blokes, say something cheeky, and whatever else they're up to over there. Let me wrap up the money line here with a quick trucking story. So we pick up my journey back with me being an outlaw. I'm 20 years old. The state of Minnesota can't contain me any longer. I got to get this adventure started. So I'm running over the road illegally, dodging scales for a couple months, waiting for my 21st birthday, a little less than 27 years ago, closing in on my birthday. So 27 years ago. I had a load of nursery stock on. Was coming out of Oregon, heading towards Ohio, a whole bunch of stops. I'll be honest, I hated nursery stock. Like when I was young, I didn't mind as much because I had a lot of energy, but the older I got, the less I liked it. It's messy, it's sweaty. Well, at least that kind, right? Not these fancy guys with the racks. Like this crap was loaded all over the floor, stacked up with those little strips of wooden lath. So you got like 6, 7, 8 layers of potted plants, the little tiny ones, the bigger ones that you see. And you got thousands of these things, all floor loaded. You got to hand unload them all. Well, I mean, they're stacked up when you start in Oregon. I got a 48-foot 1989 utility trailer spring ride, so most of this stuff was not stacked up by the time it got to Ohio. A lot of them get damaged. You got to kind of monkey with them to put the damaged ones surrounded by some tomato plants that are actually still standing up and make it look like all of them are standing up. I mean, it's a circus, but it paid good. right? That was a good thing, especially when you're little company. This was probably the best paying loads you could get in the springtime in America for reefer loads, especially out of Oregon when nothing's really running. So paid good, sucked, hated it. But so I'm running that across the US, heading to Ohio. Then my birthday happens. So now I'm legal, I'm legit. I'm running around some loads up and down the eastern seaboard, and I catch a load, head back west towards Omaha. Probably about 21 and 8 days old at that point, so it's the 27th or so of April. Rolling westbound 80. I'm cocky. I've got that strut to me. I can cross scale houses. I don't have to worry about the ramifications if I get pulled over. Crossing over from Illinois into Iowa and hit the Tipton, Iowa scale. Little words out, and I've got to pull in and head up on the scale. I'm light. What could go wrong? Get up on the scale. Speaker pops on. Bring her around back, son. Bring your logbook with you. Well, I'm excited. I'm legal, right? I'm strolling in with a happy, dopey smile on my face. I can still picture the officer's face, clear as day, cheerful guy, just looks like a happy Iowan. He starts looking at my bill of lading, my driver's license, my permit book, opens up my logbook, looks at today. I'm proud, I'm legit. And he starts flipping back through some pages. It's the 27th, so he's got a few to work with. This is before I made the transition to loose leaf logs. I was in the staple version. He flips back through some pages, stops, looks up my license again, puts my license down, gets a little grin on his face, says, "Son, let's go have a look at your truck." And so, woo, we're in the big time now. We're going to have an inspection. It's about time somebody looks at this thing properly since I don't really know what I'm doing most of the time. So he rolls around underneath, gets to the front drive axle. Next thing you know, I hear a clanking noise starting to come from underneath the truck. Not the kind of noise you really want to be hearing. He says, "Son, stick your head under here a minute." And I do. He starts wiggling my U-bolt on the suspension there on the driver's side. It's clanging back and forth. It has like an inch in play on that U-bolt. He says, "Son, that's not supposed to do that." I say, "I suppose not." And he says, "You're going to need to get that fixed." And I say, "Yes, sir." And he says, "Let's go back inside." We walk side by side back into the scale house. And at this point, I've already realized this is not going as planned. But here we are. And, I had heard that sound before under my truck, but I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And also, especially when I was pulling away, if I was shifting too hard and letting some slack into things. I thought it was my fifth wheel, but I couldn't find anything wrong with my fifth wheel. I thought there was some slack in there that the pin was rattling around. It wasn't a tight fit. So I shifted real easy and I got into that habit of kind of not creating any slack, and that kind of helped not make the noise, but I still didn't know what was wrong. But anyway, we now know what's wrong, right? I've got slack going in my U-bolts, and every time any momentum surge to either side happens, it's basically slamming against that slack. And it kind of sounds like trains when they're slowing down or taking off when you hear that series of all the slack coming out between the cars as they tighten up. So good thing he found it for me. We're inside and he says, "Now about your logbook, son." And I'm like, "I think I aced the exam." And he says, "Son, first of all, I want to wish you a happy birthday. I see it was your birthday about 7, 8 days ago. So happy birthday." "Yes, sir." "Thank you, sir." He starts flipping back through my logbook and he says, "You've been a busy guy." I'm like, "Yes, sir." Uh-oh. And so he flips back a couple more days and then he looks up at me, and it was my birthday. And he looked up at me and I'm sure I looked like I'd seen a ghost. He and I both know what's on the page before that, and it is not me being in Minnesota. And he says, "Son, you only have to show me today and the last 7 days. If I were you, I'd only have the last 7 days plus today in your logbook." Here's your ticket for your loose U-Bolt. Here's a couple cards of local shops. The payphone and the phone book's over there on the wall. Don't leave here until it's fixed. And he had a big old Texas-sized grin on his face. I didn't know what what to say or what to do. Was kind of worried that anything I might say might ruin the fact that I'm about to skate on a bunch of problems that I probably deserved. Not probably, I did deserve. And I said, "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." And I had that U-bolt replaced, and I was on my way a couple hours later. So thank you to that man. I don't know your name. You didn't make my day worse, and you helped me fix something that needed to get fixed and found. So thank you for that. And that's it for the money line this week. Let's drop it down to line 4 for a quick break and jump into this week's interview with Raheem Grant. True TMS is a cloud-based transportation management system. Being in the cloud makes integrations faster and you're able to access the platform from anywhere. They specialize in liquid transportation with their product True Liquid. It has intuitive planning, on-demand reporting, and easy order creation, rating, and invoices, which turns tedious admin work into streamlined automated workflows. And True TMS ensures your team feels supported throughout the entire process. The folks at True TMS have decades of trucking and liquid experience, and they care about this industry. They don't just sell you a product, they're invested in your success. If you're a liquid hauler, visit their website, truetms.com, and of course, tell them Channel 19 sent you.
More than anything, this show's about bringing back the sense of community we used to find on the CB, especially good old Channel 19. No rants, no corporate spin, just long-form storytelling from someone who's been behind the wheel, built the fleet, hit rock bottom, and climbed right back up.
So this week on the podcast, we've got a special guest, Raheem Grant, joining us here on the show. Welcome, Raheem. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I appreciate you.
So, usually I start off just asking some questions like, how'd you get into trucking? How'd you get into trucking?
It started last year, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
When I was in my recovery after surgery, and I said I need to do something financial to set me up, to do something with myself. So I got my LLC last year, my EIN number,
Yeah.
and then I can't get my CDL, so I went to the bulk truck industry. In November of last year, that's when I got my authority active.
Okay, great. Yeah, and so you've been finding freight and hauling freight for yourself since then?
Yes, sir. And Monday, I start a new route as a subcontractor with Home Depot.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So excited about that?
Yeah, being on the road is tough as a box truck operator.
Yeah, and especially hauling freight, finding freight, managing a business, right? That's a lot to take on getting into this business.
Right, right. And people think you gonna jump rich time you get authority. No, it don't work like that. But you got to see you gonna see some negative in that account. You're gonna see some down days, but through it all, you got to keep yourself motivated.
Yeah, trucking's a money-intensive business, that's for sure, and you got to hustle. There's no stop to it, especially when you're trying to do things on your own like you've been doing.
So it's just like next week, it'll be my 3rd year sobriety anniversary. So
Awesome.
it's like, appreciate you. So it's like a gift to me that's opened up a new door on Monday, and then on Tuesday is my 3rd year. So it's just like everything come in order, and especially when we think life is about to break down, things about to be falling apart. Sometimes we just got to be patient.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's funny, I was working on the podcast stuff before our call here today, and I was listening. I don't know how far back your music tastes go or what kind of music you're into, but I was listening to Big Mike Having Things song from, I think, probably back in the 90s. And one of the lines in there is, it's time for a change, and change came in time. And sometimes it's all about the right time. And sometimes you got to wait, like you said. Sometimes you got to push, and it's hard to know which one to do.
Right.
But you just try to get it to fit in where it's supposed to fit in life.
Wow, that saying is true, because I just post on Facebook like sobriety. I talk about sobriety all the time. And those who listening, if you battling with sobriety, you really want to change, sober play a big old part of the change you want to see in your life. And I'm a witness, you know. And it's like the sobriety, when you get sober, your mindset start changing on more positive than negative. And what people done hurt you, this and that. You get what I'm saying? So it's just
Yeah.
like sobriety play a whole big part of the change you want to see in your life. And I came from nothing, came from poverty. And all my life I've been an alcoholic. And April the 22nd of 2022 was my last day. You know, I gave it up, alcohol. In 2022, it's just like I was at my lowest point, at my darkness. So I couldn't call on nobody, and I'm not holding nothing. But the man upstairs, I believe in him. And when things was dark for me, he was the only one that pulled me through. And sometimes God will put you in a situation that you can't depend on nobody else. So it's like I was staying in a hotel, nothing in the bank account. I couldn't even afford noodles, a pack of noodles. I only could afford my room that day.
Yeah.
So it's just like God kept opening the door for me to get me a little extra dollar. I don't care if it was just 50 cent extra.
Yeah.
I could have keep that 50 cent toward a pack of noodles. You get what I'm saying? So I'm grateful for every step I take in my journey. And it's like it was one door that's open that it's not a high paying job, but it was enough money I make a week to had enough to pay for a whole week of my hotel and to put groceries in my hotel. So I level up slowly. And this trucking is like, how did I got the funds with the bill to start my trucking. I sacrificed. I walked 2.5 hours at work. I was eating peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And every dollar I made, I put it towards what needed to be done with getting my business started. And so
Yeah.
that's how I started and got connection, you know. I ain't gonna talk
Yeah.
your head out, but
Yeah. I mean, that's what it takes, right? To get to some of the things you want in life is be willing to part with some other things. Sometimes
right,
it could be an addiction to something. It could be making sacrificial choices of what you spend your money on, right? You got to get after it, but hustle's one side of the equation. What you do with the money you get from hustling, those choices matter too to get ahead.
right, right.
So how did what what got it into trucking from that, that moment where you were at your lowest, and then how do you find trucking in that?
But construction. I
Okay.
used to heavy equipment construction, the off road dump truck. I've been doing that since '05, off and on, since
Hmm.
2005. So it's just like I said, I wanted my CDLs, but I couldn't leave that drink alone. You know, I wanted my CDLs. I was just about to sign up for Savannah technical college for CDL program. And I got my DUI. Boom. I got my second DUI. Boom. I got my third DUI. So it's just like I got restricted off my CDL for 10 years. So when I was I am a transgender, a trans guy. So when I had my top surgery, last year January, I was like in my recovery moment. I got
Yeah.
I had to request days off of work, and I said, man, I need to do something with myself. I need to start me a business that can bring me to financial stability,
Hmm.
you know, because
Yeah.
I'm tired living paycheck to paycheck, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
or whatever. So since I couldn't get my CDL, I bought a truck pop up in my head. So I started doing research, like YouTube and like okay. And my very first time inside a bought a truck, I was supposed to go to Virginia, and I was scared as hell. I was scared of the mountains, the hills, and whatever. Not the mountain, but I was scared of the slope, but with the thing. I was scared of them things, but at the moment is the fear, all fear will stop the doors that we want to get in. So I had to push past my fear. Right now, I'm grateful that God allowed me to keep my authority active. Even if I don't have enough for myself right now, I know it's gonna be greater in the future. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I hear people talk about the low rate, the low paying rate. I block them type of people out of because for one, they don't know what nobody came from. Working 10 hours, doing day labor, bringing home $50 or $60. I used to do. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
And it's like getting a load for $600 driving 6 and 7 hours. I think I did pretty damn good, leveling up for where I came from. Even though some people might say that's a low paying rate and you got to pay for fuel, you got to crawl before you walk. Having a new authority, you're gonna have some challenges. A lot of brokers ain't gonna work with you. You got to
Right.
like you got to have certain lows to them to work with you, and you got to wait the 6 months so them they could trust you with their lows. So it's like you got to do what you got to do to get where you're going.
Yeah. And even thinking back to the 90s when I got started, there were times before I got into trucking full time. I had a job at a warehouse. I was a day laborer. My job was to pick up boxes or bags. They were canvas bags of magazines. And I don't know why the factory was built this way, but somebody had to stand next to one conveyor and pick up of anywhere from a 50 to 100 pound canvas back of magazines. And I had to put it up on a conveyor that I had to lift it, up shoulder high, head high. And that's what I did for 8 hours for $50. Right. So yeah, some of those cheap loads I hauled in trucking, it was better than that job. I can tell
You
you
better
that
preach,
much.
and you better preach that.
Yeah.
And I bet you work harder in that warehouse than in that driving in that truck.
Yeah, they came up to me and they were like, "You did awesome. You want to come back tomorrow?" And I'm like, "No, I don't ever want to come back here again." Like, I got to motivate myself to find something that's not putting these magazines on this other conveyor. And like, why don't you just move the conveyor and point it over here so nobody ever has to stand in this spot again? Because I couldn't imagine a worse punishment if I would have had to kept doing that day after day. But sometimes that's what motivates you too. And yeah, and trucking has ups and downs. Usually it's around a 5 year cycle. But in those down cycles, man, we hauled some cheap freight, just like people are hauling today, because you got mouths to feed, you got bills to pay. It's better than nothing. And everybody's got a different equation about what's worth it to them on that day and whether they want to sit it out and wait for something better. And sometimes you don't have a choice. Like you just got to go and try to get back to something better.
You better say that thing. You better say it.
Nobody wants to haul it for cheap. Um,
Mm-mm.
but I mean, that's the nature of the game is who's ever hungry. If there's somebody out there who haul it for a little bit less, then because they need to have it a little bit worse than you do, then that's part of the game too.
You right.
I mean, we all wish it would just have a guaranteed minimum rate or something like that, but that's how it works. They had a guaranteed minimum rate at that job at that warehouse lifting them bags, and it was $8 an hour. So I didn't really like that game either.
And see, Monday, when I'm starting with Home Depot, they got a little set little pay. It's like
Yep,
you do 12 or 15 drops a day.
yep.
Sometimes like 12 or 15 drops a day, but you're not on the road. You got dedicated lanes. So it's like you locally. So you'll be like less fuel, less headache,
Yeah.
less looking on load boards. Just go to Home Depot, let them load you up, and you drop it off. So I can't wait to start Monday to see how this journey goes.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm glad you got something you're looking forward to. But and whether it's trucking or whether it's life, that's the nature of it, right? It's what are you going to trade and to get what in return, right? So everything's just a trade-off in life, and you got to figure out for you where's the right trade to make.
You right about that.
And everybody's got a little bit different equation of how it works for them, right? There's things I definitely would have done in my 20s that now that I'm almost 50, I'm like, yeah, like you're not going to find me in that warehouse today. I don't think I could make it half hour trying to do that work right now. But I could do it when I was 19 years old. Uh, and that trade was fair because I needed $50 really bad. I needed something to eat, and I had bills to
Right.
pay that month, so I didn't want to be there, but I had to be. Well, one thing that I saw, in your post that really made me happy inside was your encouragement of other people who are facing similar struggles that you've faced in the past, being willing to give out encouragement for people to keep going.
Go backwards, and we could be back where we came from tomorrow. So
Yeah.
that's why I try to keep everybody, even by me motivating somebody else, it motivate me to keep going. I would think about my little me working day labors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's what keep me motivated on the road and keep me motivated in the journey. And a lot of folks don't want to talk about their bad habits, but me, I was a type. You wouldn't even catch me on this video because I was a shy person. It took alcohol to for me to communicate.
Hmm.
I still working on my communication skills, so that's why I didn't mind because I'm working. It helped me build myself up in communicating with others and
Yeah.
about my lifestyle. So it's like me and other people did a book called Victorious. It talk about our overcoming our addiction. We got a book out. I posted on Facebook. It's on Facebook. My book. So I pass it out for people, to read it. It's up to
Hmm.
them to take in and do they want recovery, you know. So like I say, I'm glad things happen the way my life was going now, because I done messed it up with my addiction. So it's best to fix your addiction before you try to move forward doing stuff like trying to be successful. So me personally, first I work on what made me happy on the inside. What triggered you for being to alcohol? And I was had a battle with my identity. I was born as a woman, um, but I am transitioned as a man. My doctor, who helped me with my sobriety, because I tried rehab 3 times, so rehab didn't work for me. So I had to find a primary care doctor, and he prescribed some medicine for me to stop the craving. And April the 22nd, once I took it, I ain't never took a drink since that. That was well, that was my first day being sober. So when I went back to see him, he said, "So anything else you want to work on?" And I told him I want to be, I want to be a transgender. He said, "Are you sure about this?" I said, "Yeah." So he was asking me what caused, you know, my addiction and stuff. That's what we were talking about. So he started my testosterone and whatever. He started the process. You got to take your testosterone for a year to to do your little surgery. So last year I got my little top done, chest removed. So that what made me happy. Once I got doing things that me happy. My name was Rasheen, but it's Raheem. I did a legally change. So when you sober, you can start focus on the important things in your life and you can start moving forward. I wish I had some money in my pocket, but at the same time, I use what I had to get things done. I had
Yeah.
worked 2 jobs to pay for my surgery. I had worked overnight job and my construction job just to pay for my surgery. And was it tired? Yes, it was tired, but I know I want something done. So it's just like my LLC with the truck. I put $100. The EIN number is free.
Yeah.
Stuff like that thing is free. The DOT was free. And then they say the MC was $300. Everything I took, I invested. You know, after I worry about my what made me happy.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take care of what make you happy, and you trying to start something, it gonna
Right.
collapse. So that's what I did what's important first. What made me happy, and boom, now I'm working on my financial situation. I need to grow financial. I'm tired of being broke. I'm tired of living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
I'm tired of living. I'm tired of working for cheap dollars. You get what I'm saying?
You made me think of something I've thought of before, which is The hardest job in the world is the one that you don't want to be doing. And it doesn't matter what it is. If you don't want to be doing it, if it doesn't give you something inside, it could be the worst job in the world. But if it's getting you to something that you want, you can endure it every single day. People get up, go to jobs that are tough, they're hard, they're dangerous, they're strenuous, but there's a reason they're there, right? They're trying to accomplish something for themselves, for their family, for their legacy. And so we endure a lot as humans if we want something. When we
Right.
don't know what we want or we don't know what makes us happy, then everything really kind of it gets exponentially harder, and our ability to deal with it and endure it really is goes to zero really fast.
And they say hurt people hurt people. So
Yeah, very true.
so
No, that's true too. Good point.
so that's why you got so many people in this world doing crazy things because they not doing what make them happy. And on that trucking side, a lot of folks complain. It's just like you gonna keep complaining or you gonna do something about it. Like, every industry you got, you gonna have your good and bad days.
Yeah.
You gonna have your ups and downs. What I'm learning now, when I first started, is money management is the key. It's not what you make, and it's not how much you make. It's how much you manage and what you just brought in your pocket. Say
Yeah.
you made $100. I hope you don't spend all that $100 at one time. You know you need food and stuff. Put the $20 up to the side. I don't care if it take 5 weeks to save $20. That's just my journey now. Is money management. Working on my money management skills.
Yeah.
If I did accomplish my surgery, I know I could do it to keep my business going.
Here's what you know about yourself. You can accomplish amazing things if it's what you want and you put what's in you towards it. You've shown that, whether that's overcoming addiction, doing something that not a lot of people do, which is go out and get their own authority and start their own business and turn that into your next venture here. You know you've got it in you to do it.
Right, right, and then no negative gonna stop me either. I
Right.
might get distressed because I'm human. I might get down because I'm human, but I know it's better. Some people probably took their money to buy them a brand new car. And let me tell you, my last car, it was a piece of living. That was my last. That was my last. I said, you just waste. That was a waste.
Yep.
So I said, I just rather walk the world. So I started walking 2.5 hours. Sometime I just walk to the bus stop, get on the bus. All I needed $3 to pay for the bus. That get me all day working for the work or whatever. I did that. I didn't complain. I'm happy catching the bus. I don't care. And I ain't gonna front. The other day, I connected with two financial business, and they were talking, asking me about my business, and they was like they want to help me out. So next week, I probably hear the results. That's why I say you never know what's gonna happen if you don't take steps.
Yeah, for sure. And it's amazing, no matter which journey, which choices you make that turn into which journey, you tend to run into people who accelerate those journeys. And if you're on the path towards success and you're hustling, you tend to meet other hustlers and successful people. When I've started hustling, like it's funny, like I started podcasting a few months ago. I didn't know anything about it. But next thing you know, I'm meeting people like you who are encouraging me along the way and giving me words of confidence, a help up. Hey, let me show you how to do something. People donating their time, their effort, people coming on the show like you and everybody else to share their story with me. I'm a nobody. I'm just trying to share people's stories with the rest of the trucking business, people making time for me. The blessings kind of just come out of the woodwork somehow when you're pointed in the right direction.
Well, you keep going because this trucking industry need a podcast that you got. They need folks to open up and talk about their journey so the next man can know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And all these trucking industry on Google, 44 years going down, closing their doors. They need to be on here too. Speak to the other generation down the line of what going on to you. You doing the right
I mean,
thing.
and that's part of my story too, which is, I went bankrupt in 2002 in trucking. There were some things, some of it was circumstantial, some of it was my own doing, some of it was I didn't know some things that I needed to know in that moment. So part of my growth and sharing stories with other people is saying, here's what I learned. It might not be applicable to you, and it might be the most important thing you need to hear today. But sharing those stories is how we all get better, and hopefully people can avoid mistakes that some of us have already made many times. And
Right.
helping each other through that and to tell people it's not the end of the world. It seems like it, right? In 2002, it
Right.
seemed like it was the end of my world. Everything I'd worked for to that point in my life, all my blood, sweat, and tears was gone. There was nothing left. And I had to figure out what I was going to do next. But that's also part of the positive story that came next in my life and in trucking too.
So okay, like when I hear a lot about bankruptcy, but not fully understand it in trucking. Like what they mean when they saying bankruptcy with trucking? And I might sound like a dumb question, but
No,
I'm
no.
just
I didn't really know what it meant either until I was standing in a lawyer's office going, here's my situation. I have debts, right? I owe money on trucks, I owe money on trailers, and I have some people who owe me money. They haven't paid me. I have other people who owe me money and I think they're going to pay me. And I don't know what to do because I've come to the realization that this is going to end badly. And it doesn't seem like I should be booking more loads or buying more fuel and sending drivers out in my trucks if I don't think I can pay them. And I had gone to my banker. He had the loans on several of my trucks. I had about 30 trucks at the time and 30
dang,
trailers. And then I said, look, I've got people who owe me money, but I'm having trouble collecting it from some of them and I'm running low on cash. I need some cash to help make sure that we can keep this thing going. If I don't get any cash, an operating loan, I'm going to have to probably close the doors. I'm running out of options here. And he looked at my numbers, and I was not very good at explaining my financial situation. I wasn't an accountant. I didn't know accounting. I was just a farm kid who found himself in a multi-million dollar business, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I couldn't explain it to a banker. And he looked at my numbers and he said, "Yeah, I don't think we can help you." And I'm like, "You understand that I'm going to have to give a bunch of this equipment back to you, and I can't pay for it anymore." And he's like, "Yeah, I understand, but I can't give you any more money." And so I was pretty much out of options at that point. And then I went and talked to an attorney to go, okay, I don't know what comes next, but I imagine I need some advice. And so he walked me through what the rules are, what you could do, what you could not do. It's funny that we're talking about this because I was talking to a colleague of mine just yesterday. The attorney explained to me what the rules were. And, I was paying him his fee to protect me and make sure I didn't do anything more damaging to me. But I wasn't the only one involved. I had workers, I had people that I had borrowed money from in good faith that were going to get hurt by this. I didn't know the difference between him telling me what I could, the black and white, what the rules were, but also there's a whole bunch of gray. And the attorney's very good at telling you what you paid him to tell you, which was here's how to protect yourself. And I made some choices being young and not knowing things that I really regret 20, 23 years later. I listened to the lawyer's advice because I thought that was the thing to do. And then afterwards, I said, regardless, that wasn't the right thing to do. There were drivers who didn't get fully paid out of that. There were, of course, bankers who didn't get fully paid. And, you know, there's some things, there's certain things in life that you do that you can't ever say you didn't do anymore, right? You'd like to think, I'm an honest person, but I have lied before. So then it's a matter of how honest of a person are you, right? You're not a person who 100% of the time always tells the truth. Same thing
true.
there. Like I want to think I'm an ethical and a moral person, but yeah, those days in 2002, I made some decisions that I regret, and I'll regret them for the rest of my life because it's not the kind of man that I want to be remembered as, but I also can't take them away because I did those things and I made those choices and I was wrong. And so you brought up your faith before. We're talking here the day before Easter Sunday. Um, there's a lot that kind of overlaps in between these topics you and I are talking about, whether it's addiction and the choices we made, whether it's me going bankrupt in trucking and the choices that I made, and forgiving yourself and moving on and realizing that I don't want to be that person. I didn't want to be that person. I made a choice that showed that I was capable of being that thing that I didn't want to be. But every day since then, I haven't been that person. I've been a better person. And
Come on now.
it doesn't wipe out those choices, but all I can do is be the best person I can be today.
That's it.
That's it.
Come on now. That's it. And you preaching on the planet. I like
Yeah.
to have one.
And it
Go ahead.
hurts. It hurts to think of those things. And you can't ever go, well, I'm just not going to think about that anymore because I'm not that person anymore. But they creep back in. Trucking's awful about it because a lot of times you're alone and you oftentimes can't control where your mind, the track that it goes down, but you got to work your way back to the right track and the positive and what you can do today. You don't want to let go of yesterday because, to your point, it's part of the story that made you who you are today. It's part of what made me who I am today. But I also have to know that I can't just live in the past either. And I've got to remember that I've got good things to do today and make things better.
That's right. That's right. Because believe it or not, I was literally a negative person. When I say negative person, that wasn't who I was. That was that drink. Every time I drink, that's when I speak, act crazy or whatever. Every time I drink, but I needed that alcohol, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I was really an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So it's like when he took that taste out of my mouth in 2022. It's just like I was like trying to come out my shell to talk to people and stuff like that. But sooner or later, man, baby, you can't. Sometimes you can't tell me to shut up. Sometimes no, sometimes sometimes you got to tell me to shut up right now. And then and folks don't understand why I do the things that I do now because I never used to speak like how I speak
Yeah.
about my sobriety, about my what I used to be, and like you say, you got to be the change that you want to see. And when I did the quotes for insurance, try to get me
Yep.
another insurance, the guy say the insurance agent said, "What was on your driver on your MVR?" And I got quiet. I got
Mhm.
quiet. So he said, "Give me your driver license. Give me your driver license number." So I gave him my driver license number. And about 5 minutes later, he said, "Oh, it's clean. Your MVR clean." So the reason why I made this point because sometimes we don't need to say a word when we trying to get through a thought. It's not about that we lie. It's about we sometimes we speak out of our blessing because we know what we did in our past and the door we trying to open, they don't know what
Yeah.
we did. But sometimes we open our mouth so much and we speak before it being even asked about our past. God already wiped our past away. That the person that we trying to get, that the door that we trying to open don't see our past. Because God already wiped it away. You get what I'm saying?
Yep,
So
you
I'm not
do.
trying to preach, but my faith is bigger than what my pocket could. I can have $0 right now, and I probably got $1. But I'm just, I can, but I can have $0, right? But you would think I'm the richest person on this earth, the way my faith is, and I ain't gonna talk your head off. But it's a dude when I was sitting at Love, you know, he was a homeless guy. He said, "Pick a number or whatever." So we was playing a pick a number game. So he sat at the table, got his pen and paper out his pocket, and he said, We sometimes we got to get through the 10 no's in order for us to get to that one yes.
Yeah.
And you know why a lot of folks don't to that yes? Because they give up on that last no. They just give up and they didn't know that they was on that yes. See,
Yeah.
and that's another thing. We could get connected with folks to give us encouragement to keep going on the journey that we're going on. We need to work together. No matter if we know each other or not, we need to stick together. Even at the truck stop, talk to your fellowship with your brothers and sisters. You never know what the next man dealing with inside that truck. You
Yeah.
never know. You never know what people deal with. So I love everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. Same. Yeah. It's really, you have no idea what everybody's going through, what struggle. And so when you've got something to give, give it happiness, an encouraging word, a hello, a let me get that for you, right? And
Right.
you don't know the ripple effect of that thing happening into the next thing and the next thing, and you don't know who needs to hear that thing today. It might be five steps down from your hello or your good morning, but it tends to find its way to the person who needs it. Cal, I think he was my guest on maybe episode 2 or 3. Big Cal. He does coffee with Cal in the mornings, and he just gives encouraging words. It's a couple minutes, nothing strenuous, no heavy lifting, no philosophy. It's just good morning. I hope you have a great day. And at least somebody, because there's a lot of loneliness in this business, even with all the technology that we've got. There's a lot of people who are alone and don't have someone to say good morning. I hope you have a great day. It's a lot of times Cal will do, and I don't know what he calls it, but tuck in with Cal and just saying good night. Have happy thoughts and sleep well tonight and be ready for tomorrow. It's going to be a great day for each other. Well, Raheem, it was great
Yeah.
talking to you. Amazing meeting you. We're going to have to stay in
Same to you.
touch. We'll have to hear about how the new thing's going with your Home Depot gig, and I wish all the blessings for you.
Me too. You keep doing this. I mean, you good. I
All right.
appreciate you for having me.
You
Stay in
too.
touch. Oh yeah,
Thanks.
I need to share the video on Facebook so everybody could get sober.
That's right. Well, take
All
care.
right.
Happy
You too.
Easter.
Same to you.
Bye bye.
We're talking trucking life, uncut. The wild stuff, the weird stuff, the mistakes, the memories, and the miles in between. From first jobs to last hauls, the laughs that kept us going, and the lessons that left a mark.
Welcome back. Time to wrap up our post trip. Before we sign off, quick shout out, reminder to visit friends of the show. Big Cal's Truck and Kitchen, Cal Foster over there. Check him out. Making great meals, spreading great messages. Hope you're doing well, Cal. Chris Barber, of course. Check out his page, Chris Barber. Big Red Official is the name on his page because there's a few imposters out there. The Feathersons, Tierra Featherson, they're getting off on their new adventure. Greg's out doing some port work, some cool videos out there. Tierra's working on her businesses, being at home, so lots of cool content. I-95 Truckers, Al, great to see you in the Facebook group, buddy. Al's on I-95 Truckers Facebook page. Always got great pictures of trucks that he catches over there on the eastern seaboard on I-95. MJ Love Johnson looks like she's been having fun trucking and also having some cool family adventures over in Florida lately. And of course, Cindy in Iraq, White Rose pilot car out there rolling out there shepherding these giant megaloads around the country. So check out her pages as well. Couple events coming up. Some of them I've mentioned before, so I won't go into all the details. Trucking for Kids, I put that little spot up at the top of the broadcast. Talk to the guys from 10-4 magazine over at Matt's. Happy to share information about that event that they've recently taken over, and they've been running for I think a year or two now over in Bakersfield, California. So big, long-standing event, 43 years. The other events we've got coming up this summer, I talked about the Semi Stampede over in Ohio, uphill Quebec style truck drag races. So that sounds like fun. We've got the Tulsa Truck Show. They've got the drag racing, the National Hot Rod Diesel Association drag racing, and of course, coming up here in a few weeks towards the end of May, over in Bristol, Tennessee, Tony Justice's event, large cars and guitars, raising money for a couple of charities, good music, truck shows. Looks like a really fun time. So I'll share those links again on social media. Even if you can't make it to them, spread the word. Or you never know, some of your friends might be in the neighborhood. Be sure to keep reaching out if you'd like to be on the program. Message us on social media, email us at inbox@channel19experience.com. There's a contact form on the website. Welcome to all the new followers. Keep sharing with your friends. Great to see us still growing, and also more conversations that follow from people reaching out, listening to the show, and wanting to be a part of it. So thank you for sharing. We did a live stream on Thursday. Thanks everybody who hopped onto that. It was fun with the interactions. It wasn't without our share of technical difficulties. We learned some things, which is kind of part of the mission, and hopefully we'll improve on that the next time. So stay tuned. We'll see if we can't get more of a roundtable approach, get a couple of us. You don't just have to hear my voice for an hour. We can get some other folks on the video. I think I can turn people on to the video and let them talk, but I probably won't attempt that again until I get back from the UK. And for sure, we'll probably do something when we're up in Minnesota with the live stream. There might be Maker's Mark whiskey involved and some IPAs. That seems to be a likely scenario. Maybe a bonfire too. So one way or another, we'll figure out a way to have some fun in May with live streaming. In the upcoming episodes, I plan to bring back some stories from the UK, hopefully. I've got a bunch of interviews I'm going to try to knock out this week. I'm over in the UK. Mile Market Mike and Danger Dave will make some return appearances here in May. And also in May, like I said, we'll be up in Minnesota. I also get a chance to swing into City Hall, see what plans they've made back in my hometown for a statue. I've got to be at this point the most famous podcaster from Renville County, Minnesota. So there's got to be at least some kind of statue, plaque, park bench in the works to commemorate my rising stardom. So that's a wrap this week. Like, follow, subscribe, heart, share with your friends. Thanks for listening this week. Stay safe, stay sharp. Your voice matters out here. We're the backbone of this country. If you want to, hang on a little bit longer for the Easter message. We've got work to do. Thanks for hanging on a minute or two longer, everybody, for the Easter message. Happy Easter, first of all, to everybody who's listening. I haven't really talked about it that much in the episodes of the podcast, but I'm a Christian. My family's Christians, and I know that many of you in the audience are Christians as well. And as you've heard in the podcast so far, and you're going to continue to hear in my stories, my interactions with various guests and partners with the program, I'm a flawed man. I'm flawed son, flawed brother, flawed husband, flawed father, flawed podcaster, flawed trucker, and flawed Christian. I know this to be true, but I also believe that I'm redeemed. I read the other day that by our best estimates, there's been roughly 108 billion people who've lived their lives in the history of the world. But I only know one of them from the inside, and that's me. And there's a few dozen people, my family and really close friends, that I know better or that I know well. And there's another larger circle of my friends that I know less well, but that still leaves about 108 billion people that I don't know anything about. And I won't understand their lives, their experiences, their pains, their joys. And there's 8 billion other people on the planet right now that I don't know them either. I don't know their lives. I don't know their experiences. I don't know their pains, their joys. I don't know the 8 billion people here on Earth today any more than I know those people from 50,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem. I've been blessed and I've lived and I've traveled all over the world. Humanity is very diverse. Life for us all is very diverse. And also true for us in the trucking industry the experiences, the struggles, the dreams, the challenges of the person next to us at the fuel island, at the shipping desk, at the restaurant. They're incredibly diverse as well. Lucky for me, I don't have to figure it all out or understand it all or know what everybody's going through. Jesus came and he put it into simple terms that even somebody as flawed as me and as sinful and as simple and as stubborn as me could understand. In the book of Matthew, Jesus was being questioned by various groups, Pharisees, Sadducees, trying to catch him in his words, trying to trap him, trying to get him to say something so that they could get Jesus wrapped around the axle. And in chapter 22, verse 36 through 39, Jesus cuts to the chase. The Pharisee asked Jesus, "Teacher, which commandment is greatest in the law?" And he said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." Most days, that's about as much as I'm capable of handling. So I just work on that and try to do that. He made it simple. I'm trying to keep it simple. So I love God and I love all of you. He is risen. Thank you for sticking around until the end. We'll see you all next week. We've got work to do.
This has been the Channel 19 Experience. If it's about trucking, we're talking about it. All uncut. The wild stuff, the weird stuff, the mistakes, the memories. But we talk about the world of trucking today, too. Everything from legislation to lane changes in the industry. We got it covered. Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back at the ranch soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on social media at Channel 19 Experience and the website at www.channel19experience.com. That's channel and the numbers 19. See you down the road.